Throughout the entire parade though, we really didn't see any rhyme or reason to things that were happening or going on. I also felt like that was kind of the fun of it. It really seemed like a lot of it was just people cutting loose for a day and just having fun and just going out there and being kind of wild and wacky. It's just something that they don't normally get to do in their every single day.
Something that we've learned about Germany is that its traditions and holidays vary greatly region by region, even city to city. Last week, there was a big holiday in Germany called Fasching. It's called Fasching in Austria and Bavaria and Berlin, but then in the Rhineland area, it's called Karneval, and then in Swiss German areas, it's called Fastnacht. Here in our area, we've mostly heard it called Fasching, but then we've also seen some signs that have Fastnacht on them. And for example, our parade here in our town was called the Fastnacht Umzug. We've heard that the biggest celebrations are in Cologne and Mainz, but we've also heard that some regions of Germany don't even celebrate at all. It seems like it's mostly the Catholic regions of Germany that celebrate Karneval or Fasching or Fastnacht.
Honestly, keeping track of each region's verbiage, specifically what each name means, their different traditions, can get really complex for us from the outside, trying to look in and observe the different traditions and holidays. But the actual holiday itself is kind of familiar to us because around this time of year, all around the world, people are celebrating a similar holiday. And in the US, you can find Mardi Gras celebrated all across the United States. It is a lot more concentrated in Louisiana and specifically in New Orleans where the biggest parties happen. And I was part of a student organization in college in which we went down and marched in the biggest parade in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. So I'm kind of familiar with the traditions and culture surrounding this holiday. So coming here and observing Fasching really wasn't too unfamiliar to us. So the meaning behind the holiday being sort of a huge celebration leading up to Lent, which then also leads up to Easter, is the same between the US celebrations and Faschings here. But we've also found that there are more regional celebrations in Germany, which purpose is to drive out the winter demons and evil spirits as spring approaches.
We just recently visited Ulm and Esslingen. These are both cities that are in southwest Germany. And in the city center of both of these cities, there were these tall poles that had a tree at the top with crests all up and down the sides. It looked a lot like a Maibaum or a May tree that comes in May, but we asked you all from this region to explain to us what this pole is, and you told us that it is a Narrenbaum or a fool's tree, and it represents fools coming out and taking over the city in order to drive away the evil spirits. Another interesting thing that we read about Narrenbaums is that they will hang presents from the wreath that's on the pole, and children have to climb up the pole in order to take the presents down from the wreath.
Everything that we read online about the official kickoff of Fasching and Karneval is that it actually takes place on November 11th at 11:11. We didn't really notice anything going on in our village whenever that time came around, but the big kickoff that was really visible for us was the Fastnacht Umzug, or the parade that went through our entire village. And it was this huge celebration. There was a lot of build up and setup for it, and there was a lot of smaller parties and things that we saw posters for, but this was kind of the big culminating event. We did see, though, that the number 11 carried over into this celebration because the parade started at 11 minutes past the hour at 2:11. So as the time was approaching for the huge Umzug, or the parade, I started noticing a lot more people walking around the city streets that were all wearing different costumes. It wasn't just little kids, it was also a lot of adults who were all wearing costumes as they were walking around. It felt a lot like Halloween feels to us. But one big difference that I could kind of tell from the costumes was that Halloween more has kind of a dark and scary element to it, and so a lot of the costumes are surrounding some kind of dark theme. Here, it was a lot more lighthearted and fun. So we saw a lot of costumes of people like elephants or astronauts, Alice in Wonderland characters, clowns. There's a lot of fun things like that. And then also our big old rat house downtown was completely decorated with a lot of fun, beautiful colors, balloons, streamers. So it really seemed like a really funny and lighthearted atmosphere that was building leading up to the actual parade.
From the outside looking in, it didn't seem like the overall parade had a set theme, but the parade was made up of different groups, organizations, and social clubs that each had their own individual theme and costumes. For example, we saw some groups that were cavemen, group that was Mickey Mouse theme, group that was Mario Brothers, Rainbow Cats, all kinds of different themes. And they each had either a float or a car, or they were all walking together. And each group was throwing out candy to the crowd, and kids had their baskets ready to gather up the candy that was thrown. This was kind of similar to at Mardi Gras, they throw beads into the crowd off the floats. And so people were ready for all that candy. So the kids all dressed up in their costumes, grabbing candy and putting it in their baskets really reminded us a lot of Halloween. But something else that we had never seen before was that there were some groups that were pouring wine, beers, champagne, and even hard liquors into cups and handing it out to adults in the crowd. We even saw some groups pouring Jägermeister and handing out shots to some of the adults. So there was definitely this adult element that we have never seen before in these kinds of parades.
There were a lot of unique things in this parade that we got to see also that we probably wouldn't see in a US parade. A common staple in a lot of US parades are going to be some type of marching band, whether it be from a high school or some type of military marching band that will provide music. Here they also had marching bands, but they were very different from the ones that we've seen. They looked almost like medieval uniforms. Their drums were a little bit longer and older looking. Ahead of the band was really cool flags and banners that they were carrying representing the band. So that was really neat and different. It kind of added, this element that made us really feel like we're really in Europe rather than just at any other parade. During the parade, while we were watching, all of the spectators and the people that were actually in the parade kept yelling back and forth to each other, "Hallow!" which is just a greeting, just like saying hello, but it's specific to this holiday. But hallow isn't the only greeting for the parades. In different regions, they say different things, with hallow and alaf being the two most common phrases and greetings during the Fasching Karneval and Fastnacht season. There were also dance teams and cheerleaders that were in this parade, and their uniforms were really unique. But one thing that really stood out for us was all of them wore these wigs. They were all like uniform, kind of like a uniform piece for them. They all had like the braids and the bangs that were all the exact same colors, and it was something that we had never really seen before that was kind of unique. We mentioned that it seems like this holiday is really lighthearted and there's not a lot of scary costumes and stuff. However, there still were some groups and organizations in the parade that did kind of seem to have a darker theme to it. We even saw Krampus come back out and walk through the streets. Something that we thought was reserved around Christmas time was back out here, and there seemed to be maybe some German fairy tale characters that are a little bit scarier that they were dressed up as that we really aren't aware of. But something that I did think was really interesting for me was that a lot of the little kids, it's not true for every little kid because they're all going to be a little bit different, but a lot of the little kids weren't really scared of these scary characters and these scary masks. They would walk up and they were high-fiving Krampus on the street and just enjoying it just like everybody else. Something that is similar that you do see in a lot of US parades, especially I think small town parades, that we did see in this parade were these queens that were riding kind of on the back of these convertibles and waving to people and throwing out candy. We really don't know what they're the queens of, but they were beautiful, they had crowns, and they looked like US queens. Throughout the entire parade though, we really didn't see any rhyme or reason to things that were happening or going on, and that really could be completely just because we didn't understand the holiday or tradition entirely. But I also felt like that was kind of the fun of it. It really seemed like a lot of it was just people cutting loose for a day and just having fun and just going out there and being kind of wild and wacky. It's just something that they don't normally get to do in their every single day. And it was really kind of fun too, seeing Germans that normally have this stereotype of being very serious and dry, just letting loose and just having a lot of fun and just being really goofy.
The parade lasted about an hour and a half, but we've heard in some previous years it's lasted up to 4 hours, so guess it varies from year to year. After the parade was over, the streets were covered with confetti and candy and signs of a good old time. And after people started exiting the streets from the parade, the cleanup crew came and, in true German fashion, quickly and efficiently cleaned up the streets, and there was no evidence of the parade afterwards. But the festivities were not over yet. Our city center had a carnival or festival taking place. They had food and rides, and then our community center had a party that people could go to, and everyone attended in their costumes and just continued having a fun time.
So this is just specifically how we saw Fasching being celebrated in our town and in our region, but we want to learn a lot more from you guys. You've been so good in teaching us. How do you celebrate Fasching, or do you call it Karneval, or do you call it Fastnacht in your region or in your town? What type of traditions do you have that are unique? What do your parades look like? Please leave those in the comments so we can learn a lot more about this country that we're living in. And thanks so much for checking out this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button and also subscribe so that you can keep up with more of our adventures while we travel around Germany and also the rest of Europe. We would love to get to share all of our adventures with you guys.
Auf Wiedersehen!
To drive out the evil Wintels...
And they are, it's...
You're falling apart.
Yeah.
If we break it down though, after... Okay.
Oh, it stuck. Oh no. Okay.
Action.
Ow, hold on.
Action. Figuring out exactly what each region calls...
I'm sorry. You looked at me, so I feel like I needed to look at you too.
Gosh, dang it. I thought you were unapproving of what I was saying. How about if you don't approve of something I'm saying, you can just say it. But, well, actually, I don't know if I want that. Never mind. Forget it. It can get pretty complex, especially for us looking outside and in, trying to figure out...
Outside and in.
Action. Hello. Oh, I spit. Coronavirus.
Be gone.
Other people in the stairwell. Wow, that was the best one I've ever done. But yeah.
Hour and a half, but we've heard some.
Oh. Perfect.
Okay.